Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Vincent Xavier, pastor of New Wine Ministries. Great to be with you on this Tuesday morning. We are going to have an explosive week this week, I believe, and we're going to be looking forward to spending some quality time on the air. I look forward this week to actually hosting a number of interviews with men and women of God that have a word for the ecclesia that will encourage the body of Christ in the hour in which we live. And, I hope that everything we do is towards that ultimate reality of encouraging the body, even though the messages sometimes are a little bit difficult or a little bit harsh as far as, that finality. But we're going to go and continue to declare what the Spirit of God is unveiling to us, revealing to us from what we believe. The Apostle Paul said, I believed and therefore I spoke. I'm not just speaking out of the imagination of my heart or anybody else's heart. I'm coming from the Word of God, and there are things that God wants to say, and it's all in the timing. Everything is in the timing, and accuracy is critical to the body of Christ right now. So I want to spend quality time today in the Word, and I want to begin my Bible study today. By the way, I want to put up a phone number on the screen today for anybody that would like to call into the broadcast at any time. There it is, 479-616-1820. You're welcome to call into the broadcast at any time. But I'm going to begin my Bible study today in Genesis chapter 19, and then we're going to talk. We're going to talk about heavenly things. We're going to talk about earthly things. But even the earthly things that we're going to talk about are coming from our minds in the heavens. Set your mind on things above, not on things of the earth. So the mindset is in and coming from and on the heavenly. But from that perspective, there are things going on in the earth, and things that are going on in the earth, God has always had a part. He's always had something to say. He has never been excluded from earthly events. God raises up kings, and he raises up nations, and he puts down kings, and he puts down nations. I mean, God is very much involved in the affairs of man on the earth, and the vessel through whom he often works are his own people of faith, people who believe, and particularly in the generation of the church age. Obviously, those are people who believe in Jesus Christ. So that is the ecclesia. We call that the church. The word church in the Greek is ecclesia, and it simply means called out ones. And so if you and I are called out to the Lord from the world and from everything concerning this world, well, now there's a vessel that God could actually use and work through to bring his message, his thought into the world. Whether it is a warning, whether it is an encouragement, whether it is an event that's going to be foretold, God will do that. So I want to go back all the way to the book of Genesis, chapter 19. Genesis chapter 19. And most of you have already heard the story of how God was walking with Abraham, and he had something to say to him about a place called Sodom. Genesis 19:1. There came two angels to Sodom at evening. Now, I just want to kind of break this down because I'm not in that much of a rush today at all. The word Sodom, by the way, is the Sodom, and it means burning. It means burning. The word Sodom means burning. We know that it was a Canaanite city. It's usually paired with Gomorrah. We know that, located in the area of the Dead Sea and the Jordan River. So we have that. But it also, Sodom, is from a unused root meaning to scorch, burnt, volcanic, or bituminous or bituminous. Again, it gives its location. But interesting that Sodom means to scorch or burnt, and volcanic or bituminous. And so getting back to the reading, here's what we see. There came two angels to Sodom at even, or the setting of the sun, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And who's them? It was the angels. There were two angels, the malak. An angel is a malak. And the angels are messengers. They are representatives. They are theophanic angels. Um, there is an unused root meaning to dispatch as a deputy, a messenger, an angel, also a prophet, a priest or a teacher, an ambassador. Okay, so we have these two angels that are coming to Sodom. Lot sees them and he goes and he bows before them with his face toward the ground. Verse 2. And he said, behold, now my lords, kind of knew something about him, didn't he? Turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house and tarry all night and wash your feet. And you shall rise up early and go on your ways. And they said, nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly. And they turned in unto him and entered into his house. And he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. A couple of things that are noteworthy about the passage. Number one, we really don't know what was in Lot's heart, why he met these two. Did he actually see the angelic? How did he call them lords? What did he mean by that? Was he just being respectful in his terms? Was he really concerned about them staying outside at night in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah? And if so, why? Why are these two men coming to that city so pressed upon and urged upon by Lot to come and stay the night in his home and get up in the morning and be on your way? Is it possible that Lot, who had been vexed every day by the filthy conduct of the wicked, had been praying to God as well? And maybe there was a dream or something that came to his heart that one day something like this was going to happen, and their arrival meant the sure doom of the city? We just don't know, and it is speculation, so let's continue on. When he had pressed them, it gives the cake that, or the idea that he made them a feast in verse 3 and did bake unleavened bread. Well, there may have been other occasions for unleavened bread, but really the unleavened bread is during the feast of Passover. And it talks about in that verse, he made them a feast and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. So I wonder if this event was happening in the early spring, where the springtime had come, and it was during that economy that God was sending his angels. Why? Because it was during the spring feast of Passover, unleavened bread, that God sent the death angel to Egypt to bring the people of Israel out. Here, there are two angels that are on their way into Sodom, and they're ready to bring Lot and his family out. So it would not be surprising to me that if this event took place, it probably took place around Passover. And that's very interesting to the prophetic foretelling of where we are right now, specifically with what we were talking about last week with the book of Jeremiah. God several times said to his people, come out of her. And it always makes one wonder if coming out, there may be some angelic, not interruption, but interaction. We'll save that for later. Let's go to verse 4. But before they lay down, okay, so he made them a feast. He baked unleavened cakes, unleavened bread, and it says before they lay down to go to sleep, I'm sure the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. So it says the men of the city, even the men. So we're talking about, this is a man party of a bunch of men, young and old, coming together, and they're surrounding the house where the two angels are. In verse 5, they called unto Lot and said unto him, where are the men which came in to thee last night, or this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them. Now, that word know there is an interesting, it's the yada, and this is not just a head knowledge of who they were, not an observation, not just simply a recognition. but a knowing in the same sense that Adam knew his wife. Adam knew his wife, that we may know them. We want to have knowledge of them. We want to have insight to who they are, but the word gets into a little bit deeper of a meaning of we would want to know them. And here's how we know that it's actually saying that. In Genesis 19:6, now just think about it. The guys come around from the city of Sodom, young boys, old men. Sounds like a big NAMBLA party, right? Um, so anyways, they get around and they're not saying, hey, we'd like to know who your company is. We'd like to meet them and have a meet and greet and talk with them and just, observe who they are. No, it gets a little bit more intense than that because it says in verse 6, and Lot went out at the door unto them. So Lot goes out and he shut the door after him and said, I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Well, what would be wicked about getting to observe somebody, get to know somebody knowledgeably, to understand who they are, to meet and greet? There's nothing wicked about that. They were saying, bring those two men out because it's not even sunrise yet in this story. I mean, it's dark. It's when people are out partying until 2 a.m. They get bored. They want to have a bigger party, right? And so these guys got word. Somebody came to them and said, hey, Lot took some strangers, 2 men into his house. And so in verse 8, behold, now I have 2 daughters. Wow. Lot is offering up his daughters, which have not known man. So he's got 2 virgin daughters. And he said, let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof. Now, is it possible that the father of 2 virgin daughters knew that these men were obviously homosexual? They did not want females. They wanted men. And so by Lot offering his 2 daughters, he probably knew that that would not be an acceptable offering, but it was something to delay a little bit. Again, speculation. We don't know. What we do know is that Lot had great reverence for the 2 angels or the 2 men that were under his roof. And so he's going, what do you guys want? I mean, this is so wicked. Leave my guests alone here. I've got 2 daughters. And he probably knew that his virgin daughters would not be an acceptable sacrifice to these homosexual pedophilial men that were in the city of Sodom and Gomorrah. So in verse 9, we continue on in the story. And they said, stand back. And they said again, this one fellow came in to sojourn, and he will needs to be a judge. Now we will deal worse with you than with them. So the men of Sodom are railing on Lot now, saying, who do you think you are? We were here before you. You came down into our city, and you're going to be a judge? Now we're going to do something to you that is going to be worse than what we would have done to them. And so what happens? Well, they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. So now you see that rampage is coming up. But what happens in verse 10? But the men put forth their hand and pulled Lot into the house to them and shut to the door. So the 2 angels, these 2 men that were in the house, saved, rescued Lot the first time from this mob, this raging mob. Now in verse 11, it says, and they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness. All right, so now we have supernatural power. They smote them with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. Now, did they blind them with a supernatural, I put on you blindness like the Apostle Paul did with the sorcerer? He made him blind, you shall not see for many days. Or did they blow smoke into their eyes? Did they have some tear gas? Well, it appears it is a supernatural event by these 2 mighty angels that Father Abraham had been praying a couple of days before that God would rescue his nephew Lot, right? So this happens, this event, we get into verse 12. Verse 12, and the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. Again, the call to go out before the destruction comes. You see, these two angels weren't there just to have a rescue to get Lot out. They were there to destroy the city. They were there to destroy the people of the city. Rescuing Lot, getting him out of the way, was the secondary thing. The primary purpose of the two angels was to destroy Sodom and the surrounding cities, as we'll see in a moment. So at this time, because the people are now blind, they're screaming at the doors. Only God knows the door's shut. These guys are in the house now. The son-in-laws of Lot are there. The daughters of Lot are there. And the angels are saying, get everything you've got, whatever you want to go, get it. We got to get out of here, get out of this place. Verse 13, for we will destroy this place because the cry of them is waxen great. The cry of them, what cry? The cry of violence, the cry of sin. Okay, the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. So he uses this word. It's the Hebrew word, the 7843. It's the shakath. And it literally talks about to cause it to decay, to batter it, to destroy, destruction, mar, perish, utterly waste this place. And that's what they were saying. They're now telling Lot exactly what their mission is. Verse 14. And Lot went out and spoke unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said, up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city. But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. Okay, so here comes the cry. A message came from the angels to Lot. Lot is going to his son-in-laws saying, we got to get out of here. They are mocking him. Okay. And in verse 15, and when the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, arise, take your wife and your two daughters, which are here, lest you be consumed in the iniquity of the city. They're saying, listen, Lot, you're secondary to this. Our primary function right now is to absolutely destroy this city. And if you don't come with us, if you don't get out of here, you're going to be destroyed in the city with its destruction. And that was the warning. Verse 16, and while he lingered, we call him lingering Lot, right? We call him lingering Lot. The men laid hold upon his hand. So he's lingering. What am I going to do? And then they grab him by the hand, and upon the hand of his wife. So they take his wife, and upon the hand of his two daughters. So they've got these two angels have their hands. They've got the hands of this family now. The Lord being merciful. So God is kind of intervening. He's going to pull them out because they're just lingering. So this is the Lord's mercy because of the prayer of Abraham. And they brought him forth and set him without the city. All right, so these angels were able to get Lot, his wife, and his two daughters out of the city. Verse 17, and it came to pass when they had brought them forth abroad that he said, escape for thy life. Look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain. Escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. This weekend, God was having us to minister on the mountains, that the year 2023 is a mountain time. It's a time of the mountains. And this is the second story that we're reading about the mountains, where the safety, the rescue is in the mountains. The first story was about Abraham taking his son Isaac up into the mountain and offering him as a sacrifice. And that in 2023, because in the Hebrew it talks about this, in 2023, God is going to be bringing his people to mountaintop experiences to test their heart, to prove them as to whether or not they love the Lord through their obedience and are willing to give up the most precious thing in their life. We expect that's going to be happening. But another mountaintop experience is right here, where the destruction of the cities on the plain, and that God is telling his people to escape and go into the mountains, lest thou be consumed. Escape to the mountain. Escape to the mountain. That word mountain there is the har, and that's exactly the year 2023. This is the word. It's 5783. It is 2023, and 5783 in the Hebrew numbers, and it simply means a mountain of or range of hills. Okay, where did the people flee in the days of Jesus? They went to the mountains, remember. So God is speaking to us prophetically, and then we go on and we read in verse 18, and Lot said unto them, "Oh, not so, my Lord." So here, lingering Lot is now arguing with the angels, and he's saying, no, I don't want to go to the mountains. Behold now, thy servant hath found grace in your sight. And I suspect that there are a lot of children of God today that are deeply established in the grace message. We found grace. We're under grace. Well, Lot said the same thing. Behold, now thy servant has found grace in your sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast showed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me and I die. And so here we have the mercy and the grace of God activated at a time where God is calling his people out into the mountains. But those who are under grace and mercy are arguing because they're afraid, because they're not ready to go to the mountains. What if something bad happens? And yet the ignorance in that statement is, hey, we're here to get you out of destruction. We're giving you further instruction of where you need to go. And you're afraid about being destroyed. But if we didn't get you, you'd be destroyed. You see the insanity of that thought? Where was Lot's mind? Well, after having your righteous soul, mind, vexed every day by the filthy conduct of the wicked, you wonder how much you really have left of your own thinking. That's normal. A lot of people think they're thinking right, but obviously they're not, and he certainly wasn't. And so we move on here. In verse 20, behold, now this city is near. He's still arguing with the angels to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one, and my soul shall live? He wants to go into a city. And he said unto him, see, I have accepted thee concerning this thing, also that I will not overthrow this city for the which thou hast spoken. So there's a city that is small that he was able to escape to. And the angel said, okay, we're not going to destroy that little city. Haste, verse 22, hurry up, thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till you be come thither. Therefore, the name of the city was called Zoar. The little city where he was saved was called Zoar, and Zoar means insignificant. It was a very insignificant place. I wonder if some of the Goshens today might be called the Zoars, the little insignificant places you never think about, something different than all this big stuff that's going on. So the name of the city is called Zoar. The angels can't do a thing until they get there. So now Lot, his wife, his two daughters are going there. But what happens? In verse 23, the sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Now, it's interesting. He had told them in verse 17, don't look back, right? So in verse 24, what is happening? Then the Lord, as soon as they got into Zoar, this insignificant place, rained upon Sodom. Now, I want to look at the Greek word there for rain. It's the matar. It meant to hail, to send hail. All right. This is interesting because hail is also found in the destruction in the book of Revelation. And some people have considered hail to actually equate to comets. It's another story. Whatever this rain was, what did he rain down? He rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone. Brimstone, the guff wreath, that's called the guff wreath. And the word brimstone actually means judgment or Jehovah's breath. Interesting. It also means a cypress resin, sulfur, brimstone. Right? So there's a lot going on here, both prophetically and spiritually. And it says that he also rained upon them fire. So brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. Very interesting. You could tie this into Revelation chapter 8. In Revelation chapter 8, when the prayers of the saints are going up and the angel takes the prayers with the incense and brings it coals from the altar and he casts it into the earth and there's fire. So there you have fire from earth or from heaven coming upon the earth. And then you have the seven angels with the seven trumpets. This is just a time to be knowledgeable about God's righteous judgment. And in verse 25, and he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and that which grew upon the ground. So he overthrew it. What does it mean to overthrow? It's the hafak, the hafak. And what does it mean? It means to turn about or over, to change, overturn, to tumble, to retire. It also gets into overthrowing, overturning, and he just threw this place to the ground. I mean, absolutely horrible. Verse 26, but his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. So his wife, Nabat, she looked back, which means to scan. It's the Hebrew word Nabat, again, to scan, to look intently. It would be like looking into a nuclear blast, a mushroom cloud, right? It also means to regard with pleasure, favor, or care, to have respect. So something in Mrs. Lot looked back with care and concern for the place she had been for this time in her life with Lot. And so what happened? She turned into a pillar of salt. And unto this very day, we know the story. To this very day, that pillar of salt is in Jordan. A lot of dear saints of God are in Jordan right now. They're probably telling the story over and over and over again. Wouldn't be surprised. Verse 27, Abraham got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. Now, I love this about how the economy of God works. While Lot is down in the plains and destruction is hitting, his wife is turning into a pillar of salt. They're fleeing to these insignificant places for a hideout. Where is Abraham? Well, he got up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah and toward all the land of the plain and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. So Abraham is in the mountains, journeying with God in the eternal purpose of God. He's up here, looking down at the destruction. You know, God's people either geographically are going to be called to the mountains, or in Hebrews chapter 12, you have come to Mount Zion. There's going to have to be an establishing of the hearts to know that we have spiritually ascended and are walking in Mount Zion. But I have a sense that it's probably going to be both. We'll get into that in just a little bit. And you say, why are you reading this story? Well, I'm going to tell you in just a moment. So he saw the smoke going up like a furnace, and it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow when he had overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. Well, we think at this point, all right, whew, Lot was saved out of Sodom and out of the destruction and overthrow of all the plains. Abraham had been interceding for him. Nothing. He wasn't touched by a thing. He was just observing from afar. I don't know about you, but that's how I want to be when the destruction comes to the cities of America. I want to only be observing, as Psalm 91 said, only with thine eyes shalt thou see and behold the reward of the wicked, but it shall not come nigh thy dwelling. I want to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right thing with the right people right now. And this is very, very important because God has already proclaimed what he's going to do. Remember, he already told Abraham what he was going to do, but Abraham was interceding for his nephew. And so the delay of the destruction was to get the people that knew grace and mercy, but were still stuck in the areas that were going to be destroyed out. And yet, even in that massive deliverance, we have a situation where it's not over for Lot. I mean, there's more that is going to happen to this man of grace and this man that knew the mercy of God. He already lost his wife, but what else is going to happen? Well, we read in this story just a little bit more as we go on. And Lot went up out of Zoar after the destruction and dwelt in the mountain. So he finally gets to the mountain and his two daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his two daughters. And the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said to the younger, behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father, and the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger, she also bare a son, and called his name Benami. The same is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day. So this thing goes from kind of bad to worse, because the sudden destruction of Sodom, that was it. It was final, and it has never been. Not a blade of grass grows where that event happened. Even to this day, you could go to where Sodom and Gomorrah was. It's nothing but rock, okay? But this thing with the Ammon and with Moab has gone on forever and ever and ever, even unto this day. These nations exist, which are a thorn in the side and a prick in the eye to the children of Israel and to the world today, right? So you could do some studying on Moab. You could do some studying on Ammon and find out who they are in the Islamic world today. And it's amazing that that thing just kept going on and on and on. It's like it never ended. And it was always somewhat of a curse. You say, well, why are you reading this story? Well, I'd like to explain that. I want to go to the book of 2 Peter. Let's see if I can get it here. In 2 Peter chapter 2, I know where it's at, so I'll just get to it. But while we're getting there, let me read a few more verses, okay? So that goes all the way back to Genesis. This is the story of stories, right? In Isaiah chapter 13, verse 19, I just want to read a few verses. Isaiah 13, 19, in Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees. All last week we were talking about America, a daughter of Babylon, right? So she's the beauty of the Chaldees, excellency, shall be as. So this daughter of Babylon, this Babylon, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. And then in Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 40, as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah and the neighbor cities thereof, saith the Lord, so shall no man abide there, neither shall any son of man dwell therein. Now he's talking about Babylon, if you'll recall. And then in Amos chapter 4, verse 11, I have overthrown some of you as God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. All right. And you were a firebrand plucked out of the burning. Remember, Sodom means the burning. Yet have ye not returned unto me, saith the Lord. So let's get into 2 Peter, and I'll explain why I'm reading this now. 2 Peter chapter 2. And let me get into the cities of Sodom here. So I'll give you some really great definition. So the cities of, all right. 2 Peter chapter 2. And I'm just going to begin in verse 4. Well, we have to go to verse 1. Let's go to verse 1. Because this is going to tie into what we're going to talk about today. But there were false prophets also among the people, even as there shall be false teachers among you. This is New Testament. This is the Apostle Peter talking to a new covenant church, if you will. You want to use that language just to show that, because everybody says, well, that was the Old Testament, this is the New Testament. But just to be clear, this is and this is in the covenant of Yeshua's blood. Peter is talking to the ecclesia made up of Jew and Gentile. And he said that these people, these false prophets and false teachers, will bring in damnable heresies, even denying the Lord that bought them, and bring upon themselves swift destruction. And many, not few, many shall follow their pernicious ways, by reason of whom the way of truth shall be evil spoken of. And through covetousness shall they with feigned words, so the false prophets, the false teachers are going to use feigned words, make merchandise of you. So through their feigned words, tickling your ears, scratching your back, tell us smooth things, soothsaying, okay? It's all because of covetousness. Shall they with feigned words make merchandise of you, the people whose judgment now for a long time lingers not, and their damnation slumbers not. For if God, now comes the example, for if God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved unto judgment, and spared not the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. So he's using the flood of Noah's day as an example. And then he says in verse 6, and turning the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them with an overthrow, making them an ensample. Okay, this is key to right now. Sodom and Gomorrah was made an ensample. The word ensample is the hupadegoma, and it literally means a sign, a representation, a figure, a warning, a pattern. A warning, a pattern. So he's saying here that he made Sodom and Gomorrah an ensample or a pattern or a warning unto those that after should live ungodly, and delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked, For that righteous man dwelling among them in seeing and hearing vexed his righteous soul from day to day with their unlawful deeds. Okay, so what is he talking about? What is the Apostle Peter saying? The Apostle Peter is saying that Sodom and Gomorrah and the days of Noah, the flood of God's righteous judgment, were all examples and end samples to anybody, an individual or a nation, that would live like them. And the same thing that happened to them would happen to the people that followed their example, their pattern, who patterned themselves afterwards. Now, in the book of Jude, another apostle of God, not just a regurgitation of the same word, but another prophet of God spoke to his generation. And here's what he told them. And I'm just going to pick this up in verse 3. Beloved, when I gave all diligence to write unto you of the common salvation, it was needful for me to write unto you and exhort you that you should earnestly contend for the faith which was once delivered unto the saints. All right, so he's calling saints to fight for the true message of salvation. For there are some or certain men crept in unawares who were before of old. Okay, so they carry the same kind of judgment, ordained to this condemnation. They were ungodly men, turning the grace of our God into lasciviousness and denying the only Lord God and our Lord Jesus. These are the same men spoken of as false teachers and false prophets who, for money, out of covetousness, will say things to people who have itching ears and want to be told smooth things. They will present doctrines of demons, false doctrines, so that the people will be deceived rather than understanding the real judgment that's about to hit them for the conduct that they have had. Now, he goes on a little bit. I will therefore put you in verse 5, in remembrance, though you once knew this. So here is a New Testament apostle talking to a New Testament ecclesia made up of Jew and Gentile. They once knew about this, but they were forgetting. And he said, I want to put you in remembrance, though you once knew this, how that the Lord, having saved the people out of the land of Egypt, afterward destroyed them that believed not. So number one, here comes a salvation from Egypt, but the same people that were saved were destroyed, and they never finalized what God had intended. Why? Because they stopped believing. Then he brings up an example, and the angels which kept not their first estate during the days of Noah, but left their own habitation, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness, under the judgment of the great day. And then he goes on with a third example, because those demonic angels that have been reserved unto judgment until the day, that's what's going to unleash in the last days. I believe that these fallen angels, going all the way back to the days of Noah, who have been in darkness and reserved unto the day of judgment, are going to be unchained and unloosed. Maybe Revelation 9, when the pit opens and these locust demons come out, there's going to be an invasion of very strong, evil, wicked, demonic spirits who have been bound up. They're going to be released in the final generation. I believe we are that final generation. But let's go on to verse 7. Even as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities about them in like manner, giving themselves over to fornication and going after strange flesh, are set forth for an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire. Why are we reading? The Bible is very, very clear. And you could go back into the Gospels and you could hear Jesus say the same exact thing. As it was in the days of Lot, as it was in the days of Noah. Okay, so the scriptures are replete. There's a witness. We're in the year 2022. God is speaking by his word through his son, and the prophets of God are speaking to us of old, and God is warning our generation. What is he saying to us? God if I put it all together, is saying that the time of destruction upon the United States of America. Why? Why Babylon? Because it's Babylon? Well, it's more than that. You see, the witness is right now, all over this country, you have people in high positions of power, just like in Sodom and Gomorrah, leaders of different cities and nation that are prescribing transgender medication. They are doing the most vile, they are doing the most wicked things. We have all heard, even though they sweep it under the carpet, the proverbial carpet, that on Pedophile Island, Jeffrey Epstein's Pedophile Island, which the skirt was lifted up and there was a, but it went, they pulled it right back down again. And there was a revelation of the grotesque sin being committed in our society and in our nation amongst the highest powered political people in the world. From presidents to princes, were traveling to Jeffrey Epstein's Pedophile Island to engage in the most immoral sexual conduct with young ladies underage, and the vile bloodletting that went on in these areas where they would terrify little children, kill them, and drink their blood for a certain kind of hormone that would bring a youthfulness to their own bodies. You may say that sounds like vampire Dracula stuff, but there's too much evidence to show, even out of Hollywood, how they take the baby's blood and they drink the baby's blood and they eat their feces. And I don't know how further I have to go with the conversation, but the fact of the matter, if Sodom and Gomorrah were judged for their sexual exploits, their ungodly sexual exploits, the United States of America and other countries around the world have promoted the pornographic industry. And you think, well, there's nothing wrong with pornography. You bet there is, because that's a sexual deviancy that has been used to destroy the family in the United States of America. So we have had for an entire generation, as Babylon, Mystery Babylon, has reset herself in America as another daughter of Babylon, the same sins of Sodom and Gomorrah, from Alfred Kinsey, the pedophile in the 1950s, who examined over 2,000 little babies and brought them to orgasms through pedophile men for experimentation. And the experimentation has never ended. And the American people, like Sodom and Gomorrah, live under the filth of this conduct, and nobody does anything. Even righteous Lot, representing Christian America, they know the grace of God, they know the mercy of God, but they are powerless to do anything against what's happening in our country. So what is God foretelling us? Through the true prophets of God, not the false prophets. And I want to be very careful. How many prophets just proclaimed? The same prophets that said Donald Trump was going to win the presidency in 2020. The same exact prophets proclaimed a red tsunami wave of Republican victories. Now, I don't want to get into this because it's really not that important, other than, again, it's lining up with end-time Bible prophecy for the same prophetic community that declared a red tsunami out of covetousness has won the admiration of millions of Christians in America that touted their propaganda. But it was not true. It is not true. And they're going to say the same thing they did in 2020. Oh, it was true, but they cheated. And again, I would say, why didn't the Spirit of God tell you they were going to cheat? Now listen. While the prophetic community today is saying Donald Trump was going to win 2020, while the same prophetic community said there was going to be a red tsunami, there were other voices that were speaking the truth, that have no reputation, that have no admiration, that have no large following, that have no stage in the world thing, but they spoke the words of God. and in both occasions said that's not going to happen. Judgment is upon the United States of America. This hyper sensationalizing American greatness through the so-called prophets today that have the admiration of men is false. It's not the truth. The truth is, God is forewarning the judgment. And what he said to Lot, to the Christians of today, he told Lot, if you don't get out of here, if you don't stop this nonsense, this silliness, if you don't come out, you're going to be destroyed in the iniquity and the overthrow of this nation. There is no doubt when it comes to the Bible, to the biblical mindset of things. There is no doubt, zero, none, no afterthought, nothing. The Bible says that when anybody lives like they did, they would incur the same judgment. The cities of America are going to be decimated. And I suspect that there will be those who mock, curse, scoff, laugh, rail, but that really doesn't matter. If you're listening to this radio broadcast, you're hearing the truth of God. The cities of America are going to burn to the ground in ashes. We can only surmise who God will use or how God will do it. Let me say this. In the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, there was no Russia, there was no China, there was no Iran or North Korea or nuclear weapons or dirty bombs. God did not need anything. God rained down fire and brimstone. This gives us a little bit of closure. It is possible in the economy of God that he will call for Russia, he'll call for China, or he'll tell the demonized MAGA party right, and the left is demonizing them. He'll raise up anybody he chooses, North Korea, Iran, domestic terrorists, the left, to do his job. He could do that, but he doesn't need them. God does not need anybody to help him do what his word says he's going to do. And God is going to do this. And you say, well, this has been going on for a long time. Yes, our generation was the first time in the history of the United States of America, and I'm talking about the generation that witnessed Israel become a nation, the United States become a superpower, and the United Nations come to life. Those are three major events: the United Nations, the United States, and Israel becoming a nation. That marked the final generation wherein all things will be fulfilled. And in the context of this generation, God says, I'm bringing this to an end. Within our generation, because prior to 1948, prior to 1945, abortion was illegal in the United States of America. Pornography was illegal in the United States of America. Homosexuality was illegal in the United States of America. The shedding of innocent blood, the homosexual agenda, pornography, abortion, all of these things you went to prison for if you committed them in this country prior to this final generation. In the 1950s, when rock and roll began to sweep the nation, when Alfred Kinsey came out with his experimentation as a pedophile himself, a homosexual pedophile at that, With all of his experimentations, they have in Indiana, they have a place dedicated to him. This experimentation continues on with the sexual thing going on. Then came the legalization of abortion after Woodstock. And if you track it, it all began in the final generation. And you say, well, these things have been going on too a lot. Right. What has happened is all throughout this generation, the cup has been filled. You say, well, there have been great things that have happened in this country. The Jesus movement in the 1960s. Yep. The charismatic renewal movement in the Catholic Church. Yep. Revivals supposedly broke out and the word flourished and we became mega churches and we had big stages and limelights and we grew and the word went out and Christian television. Yep, that's right. It was as though two were growing together. But what happened to the Christian ethic? It has been overcome and overwhelmed by the gross misconduct of the world and the left in our nation. The pastors sold out for the big bucks. Those who were intended to be watchmen on the wall came down because they were influenced to go on a big stage. And rather than watching, they wanted to be watched. They no longer spoke words of warning. They spoke what people wanted to hear. They no longer spoke the truth. They began to speak lies, even using the Bible, much like the devil did when he spoke the word of God to Jesus in the wilderness. If I base my thoughts and my words on the Bible, what it says, I'm on the right side. I would never, ever bless the United States of America for what it has done against God. I couldn't, because the Bible doesn't. The Bible, do you really think God in the Bible is blessing Hollywood? Because Hollywood was like the belly of the beast and all of the vomit that poured out of Hollywood. There was a time before this final generation, Gone with the Wind, you were not allowed to use the word damn. Remember, it shocked the nation. You had Lassie. We had all kinds of really cool, really good Disney programs for kids and family. But it turned in our generation. And all of a sudden, it began to pour out the filth. To this day, what's coming out of Hollywood is so rancid, so disgusting, so violent, so much blood, so much sex, so much blasphemy. And you think God's going to bless when that out of Hollywood belly flows into every home, 360 million homes, 400 million homes, televisions, the one-eyed beast in every home, taking in and allowing the filth to pour into the children, and now the homosexual agenda through that? Are you telling me as a prophet of God, you can stand and bless the United States of America? Well, not only the filth that is pouring out of Hollywood, but the corrupt governments, the corruption in our politics, the corruption in our churches, that churches now embrace the homosexual agenda and all that's tied to it? Are you saying that when we find our past presidents and senators and congresspeople going to an island that Jeffrey Epstein owned to have sex with little girls and little boys, that God would have us to bless America? Do you really believe that in one generation that it has spun so far to the left that we have become worse than Sodom and Gomorrah? And do you know? Let me give you one more witness. Revelation chapter 11. just in case you don't understand how this works, and I know most of you do. In Revelation chapter 11, a very interesting thing happens, and I won't go into all of it, but here's what it says. Revelation chapter 11. I want to make sure I'm in the right place here. All right, so let me read in verse 4, Revelation chapter 11, verse 4. These are the two olive trees and the two candlesticks standing before the God of the earth. And these are the two prophets of God. They're going to be prophesying on the earth, destruction and doom. They're going to send plagues. They're going to do all kinds of things. It says, if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth and devours their enemies. And if any man will hurt them, he must in this manner be killed. These have power over waters to turn them to blood and to smite the earth with all plagues as often as they will. And when they have finished their testimony, the beast that ascends out of the bottomless pit shall make war against them and shall overcome them and kill them. Verse 8, listen to Revelation chapter 11, verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. Where was Jesus crucified? Was he not crucified on Calvary, just outside the city gate of Jerusalem? But did you notice it was called spiritually Sodom and Egypt? So if God would call Israel, Jerusalem, spiritually Sodom and Egypt, why would he not call the United States Sodom and Gomorrah and Egypt and every other Babylon designation? So the Bible tells us about the definition of Babylon, the description of Babylon, the definition of Sodom, the description of Sodom. And this is applied to a certain place in antiquity, but future generations come along and they are identified just like them because they're doing the same thing they did and getting ready to incur the same judgment. Do you see it? America today, mystery Babylon, a daughter of Babylon. We are Babylon. The description I read last week, it's all over us, but we are also Sodom and Gomorrah. Do you understand? I got a call coming in. I'm going to go ahead and take the call and say good morning. God bless you. Welcome to the broadcast. You are on the air. Good morning.
Good morning. Yes, your program that you have been speaking. Vincent, am I speaking to you live now? I've got two different programs on here.
Yeah, I hear you clearly and you are speaking live. Definitely.
Okay. So when you were bringing out about Sodom and Lot today, all right, and I was just following this in the Bible. Now, apparently he had 4 daughters because like you said, 2 of them were virgins and the other 2, there were son-in-laws left behind. So now that is clear, I think. And then the other thing concerning the seed that was born from the daughters and their father, and it has to do today with the people that are in the Arab country, apparently is what you're bringing out. And then the other thing is definitely throughout the years and the people that God has allowed my husband and I to be acquainted with, and that it's over for America. So we need to just stay strong like you're bringing out and faithful to the end.
You know, Kathy, It's interesting you bring up Dimitri Duduman. For those that don't know, the woman that is on the telephone right now, Kathy Bruns, up in South Dakota, had the opportunity many years ago to host Dimitri Duduman and Michael Bodea, his grandson. We have, throughout the years in our church ministry, have hosted Michael Bodea. We've traveled with Michael Bodea. We have had conferences with Michael, and Dimitri Duduman, his grandfather, who Kathy and Ken hosted. He wrote his book, and he came as a prophet of God to America. And when he got here to America, God began to show him the true condition of our nation. And the true condition was that it was Babylon. And he would go through different places like Las Vegas and different cities and say, this is Babylon. New York, this is Babylon. Another city, this is Babylon. And it will be destroyed by fire. And it's interesting because before coming on the air today, Kathy, I was thinking of Dimitri Duduman's prophecy, but here was the difference. The difference today in saying and repeating what the prophet had said and others have said in the past is the sense of finality. The time of warning is over.
Mm-hmm.
The time of saying what they said, which gave tremendous opportunity for people to make a decision what they were going to listen to. If you're a Christian today and you're looking at our country and you're seeing what's going on in the cities of America, and you want to snuggle in and say, well, I'm under grace and mercy. If you want to, say everything's going to be all right, or you're going to live it out because it's advantageous to you and your lifestyle, but you'll be out of here in the pre-tribulational rapture, so I don't worry about it. You're not following the instructions. If you cannot see the blasphemy, the wickedness, and the evil, well, you may very well get caught in the snare and not escape, even as Jesus said. So very interesting, Kathy. Very interesting. Finality.
Very much so. It's a great delusion, the fact that people feel they're not going to go through any of this things, the judgment of God. And it is written, and I believe too that these suitcase bombs that are here, they're in this country. And I just heard a minister last night speak over on the network, and he said they will all go off at one time. So we will have chaos, and people better know, like you said, geographically where you're supposed to be, and also so significant spiritually that when this happens, we will not cave in, and we will be divinely protected only if we abide under the shadow of the Almighty. And I mean, it is so prevalent now, the sin that has taken over our nation. And that's the first thing that happens when to destroy a nation is the morals, though. And that's what happened, Sodom and Gomorrah, and look what happened.
Yeah, and the warnings have come, and we'll see what happens. And so thank you for calling, and thank you for sharing.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate it very, very much. God bless you. All right, Kathy Bruns, South Dakota. If you have a question or a comment about what you heard today, the number is on the screen, 479-616-1820, 479-616-1820. Something you'd like to add to the conversation? I know we've just begun. We're just opening this up, but I want you to know this isn't just repeating what we've said for such a long time. There seems to be, in the spirit of what is being said, finality, conclusion. This is now here. This is now here. And how are you and I going to deal with this? How are we being forewarned about this? What are we doing to prepare for this? I don't expect people who are under the delusion to do anything. And it is a delusion. How can anybody read the Bible and deny? Why? Just by saying, well, God is too good to let that happen? I know how good God is. Many of you know how good God is. I mean, this is the best time of our existence on this earth. We have never been more blessed by God. And I know that obedience brings a blessing, and humility, God exalts those who are humble. But right now, his message, to get the message out over the airwaves, however he can do it, to warn people, and I know it's going unheeded by the majority of the people are not taking heed to what is, because all these other voices are proclaiming some other things, and we're still thinking linearly about somehow, and we're not seeing from the heavenly perspective what God is saying. Abraham was up here. He was in the heavenlies, if you will, and he was looking down at the destruction. And you have to position your life to know exactly what God is saying to you, even if it means disrupting your nest. And if you're in a very comfortable place, but you know what you're hearing is true, and you need to stir up your nest and move on and get out, then you need to be responsible to do that. And I'm speaking from experience, because we lived in a beautiful place in San Diego, California. And 13 years ago, God told us to leave that beautiful place and come to a place called Arkansas. Are you kidding me? My wife said, "Where's Arkansas?" And God brought us here supernaturally by his Spirit and by witnesses like angels meeting us along the way, telling us where to be when we flee California. And we did. And when we left there, we started preparing for the days that we're now in. We don't forget 2020. We don't forget what's happened in our country since 9/11, 2001. We're not, today we're looking at the deception that's pouring out everywhere. So I can't go into all of that detail right now. But again, if you are interested in calling into the program, the number is 479 616 1820. If not, we're going to move on. And I want to just say before I get off the air today, good morning to Kathy Bruns, who just called in. Pastor Denny Sossaman and Sally, good morning, coming in loud and clear. Appreciate it. Welcome home, by the way. Kevin Hauger, good morning, Pastor Vince. Snow and rain cannot stop me from returning back here to support you on Rumble and here. Thank you, Kevin. God bless you. Safe journeys back home. Melissa Fletcher, Pastor Melissa, God bless you. Pastor Melissa knocked it out of the park. I'm going to say it again. One of the very, very, very best messages we have heard on the table. Loving it. Lioness Prophetess. All right, Lioness Prophetess, good morning. Amen. So deep, take full control over something. Good morning. Okay, well, God bless you, Lioness. And welcome to this platform. Shirley Woolsey, good morning from Texas. God bless you, Shirley. David Ellison is going to support the Xavier Foundation, he said. No, we're going to get the ark done, right, David? God bless you. Elaine Augustin, good morning, Elaine. And Richard, I believe, God bless you. Welcome to the broadcast. Open our hearts and our minds to receive this. Shirley is praying. Elaine says, what about the city of Nero in Saudi Arabia that is being built right now? Will there be more than one Babylon? Babylon is a global world system, and there are many daughters of Babylon, but America has definitely become, according to Bible definition and description, a daughter of Babylon. Yeah, there are others around the world, no doubt about it. But when you have a Judeo-Christian nation being conformed into a Babylon like Israel, who took on the spirit of Sodom and Egypt, it's going to get whacked like in 70 AD. But the prophecy against this daughter of Babylon shall never rise again. Hey, by the way, I also want to bring to your attention today, if you are in need of prayer, and I apologize deeply for not putting this out there earlier. If you have any need of prayer in your life, you need direction. You need somebody to pray for you about what direction to go in. You know, you hear the word, your heart is stirred, but your family is here and this is that. And, you need prayer. Get prayer. Call this number 479 233 3774. That's 479 233 3774. Someone's waiting for your call right now. You could text the number as well. You need prayer for healing. You need prayer for finances. You need prayer for a relationship. You need direction. Whatever you need, just agreement with, someone to pray with, call that number and you'll receive prayer. All right, we'll pick up our conversation tomorrow, Lord willing, when we come back on the air. I suspect I'll be having some brothers and sisters with me to bring the word of the Lord. Thanks for tuning in today. By the way, if you would like to support this ministry, there is one way to do it. There's actually a number of ways of doing it, but I would encourage you, if you would like to support it right now so you don't forget, Sometimes people have the desire to give and they want to give and then they forget. Right now, you could go to your phone and you could actually text 41088 Omega all together, no spaces. The numbers 41088, and then in lowercase right next to the numbers Omega, Omega. And then when you type that in 41088 Omega, when you text that, type in the word give, and that should process you all the way through to giving whatever is on your heart to give. We would value your support of our ministry. We thank you and we bless you and ask the Lord to multiply his blessing upon you for giving to us to do the things that God has put in our heart to do. As you have heard, I am looking to purchase land and to develop a Christian community in a very specific place. And I'm doing this because I believe the need is great. I believe the need is great. So again, you could give 41088 Omega, type the word give. You can also, if you feel better about sending a gift in the mail, maybe you want to give something beautiful, I don't know, whatever you want to give, you could send it to the P.O. Box 100. That's it, P.O. Box 100. That's in Decatur, Arkansas, 72722. I'll leave that up on the screen. I was just about ready to take a phone call. If you'd like to call back, we'll bring you back onto the air. And I think it's time for me to get rolling. So thank you for giving. Thank you for supporting the ministry. I believe that we have spoken the word of God. You be the judge. And it's just, we want zero compromise. We can't mix. Mixture is Babylon. Mixing the graces of God with this present atmosphere in this country would be a gross error and a gross sin. We just refuse to do that. Having said that, we'll see you tomorrow. This is Pastor Vince. You've been listening to The Watchman.